Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. Today we're going to be having a look at November's exceptional story, A Devil's Due. But as always, at the start of a new exceptional story, I encourage you to play these yourself, support Failbetter, become an exceptional friend. Not only do you get access to these exceptional stories, you get double the candles, and a bigger deck, and a few various other nice bits and pieces. If you want to support me, there is a coffee link somewhere down below. But let's get this started. Restless sleep is a fate that befalls every Londoner. Though your sleep is relatively free of nightmares, the city always encroaches on the most pristine of bedchambers. Howling in the night, sudden changes in temperature, or simply the body's rebellion at the idea that night and day should be separate when one hasn't seen the sun in a long time. You are suddenly aware of a knock on your door. In a city where time is as subjective as London, midnight callers are not unusual. Well, let's see who it is. Not the post, at this hour. In the weak gaslight, you see the eyes first, glowing like coals. A deviless at your door. All devils are beautiful in their own ways, even the ones that don't remotely resemble people. But this one is beautiful in a specific way that Renaissance marble is beautiful. Something hard and eternal, impersonating something pliable and fleeting. Evening, my lady. Aren't you going to invite me in? We have a few options. We can let her in kindly. Who could say no to this face? We can let her in industrially. Is that dress council woven silk? There's money to be made here. We can let her in warily. No doubt she means to involve you in a plot. Maybe you can turn it to your advantage. We can let her in amusedly. A deviless at your door? What fun. Or we can let her in abstractly. You've let the devils get close before. This would be because we don't have a soul. I still haven't got that back. Let's let her in amusedly. Let's use my hedonist quality here. She crosses the threshold with a predatory smile. Hardly a moment passes before she's helping herself to your sherry and sitting down onto the arm of your sofa. I won't be but a moment. I'd like you to consider a proposition. She tilts a glass of sherry, your sherry, to and fro in her hand, measuring you with her eyes, considering whether you're even the one she's looking for. You don't recognize her, but then again, you are not well connected with devils. Call me Verity, she says. I'd like you to investigate a matter for me. She doesn't say why she came to you, but you can make an educated guess. We can say we've solved a few cases in our day. You are, among other things, an investigator of some repute. We unlock this with a name in 7 secret alphabets, or that my soul is no longer my own. Devils find the soulless uninteresting, but useful. You know what, let's follow down this track. That we are soulless. I was once in possession of a very particular soul. It was ancient and beautiful. A lyrical soul. Unique, at least in this age. She sips her drink delicately, leaving a hint of a lipstick stain on the glass. It was taken from me. Not recently, some time ago. I would like it back, but I am unsure of who has it now, and it would be unsightly for me to make inquiries of my own. I need someone reliable to investigate on my behalf. After a few minutes of conversation with Verity, it's apparent that everything about her demeanor is a carefully maintained performance. She sits on the arm of a sofa to project insouciance. She keeps her eyes on you. She reveals nothing at all about what she is thinking. We can ask about the nature of the lyrical soul, so what exactly makes it so special? Would you ask this question of a Caravaggio? Its value is self-evident to those who can appreciate it. Meaning, of course, not to you. It is the soul of a poet, but of course that doesn't answer your question. We all have crates full of poets' souls in our cellars. It is more precise to say that this is a soul shaped by very specific circumstances, ones that won't arise again. What is your connection to this soul? She had it, and then she lost it. How did that happen? She shrugs. Souls change hands, commerce and other struggles. She turns her head away for a moment, as if in recollection. We don't know what we have until it's gone, isn't that right? You can just barely spot the tiny twitch of irritation in the corner of her mouth. Is the question a sore spot for her? Maybe she lost the soul in unpleasant circumstances. Well, what's in it for me? This is, after all, a transaction. She parts her lips, giving you a glimpse of that too red tongue and those too white teeth. I wouldn't expect help out of the goodness of your heart. You'll be compensated well. Perhaps a different soul from my collection, or another suitable fee. Or perhaps there is something more specific you might be searching for. If you'd like it back, of course. Maybe I know a thing or two. She stops short of making any real promises, of course. It's improbable, to say the least, that she could materially help you retrieve your soul. If you even desire that. Oh, please, please, I will do anything. Okay, well, let's ask about her intentions. If she finds who has this soul, what does she intend to do about it? Are you worried about being entangled in some vast plot? It's nothing so sinister. I simply want it for myself. It's too precious to end up in a law furnace. Well, where shall we begin? Does she have any kind of lead? She takes your hand. Hers has the heightened warmth of a devil. She slides 3 coins onto your palm. A currency of hell. Show one to a devil, and you can compel from them a story. Give it to the devil afterwards, and you can compel a truth. They're crudely struck tokens made of iron, covered entirely in rust. One for each possible owner of the soul. As she gets up to leave, she proffers an envelope. Everything you need to know about the first one, and my calling card, so we can discuss whatever you learn afterwards. You open the envelope as she slips out of your home. The calling card lists Verity's address near Moloch Street. Alongside it, the time and location of a soirée in Vale Garden that you are meant to infiltrate. I'm guessing that's code for go to Vale Garden. Here we go. Approaching a soirée. Your first target should be found at a soirée in Vale Garden. The address is a well-appointed townhouse, though the crowd gathering around it is a motley collection of bohemians and the fashion-obsessed. You will need to secure a pretext to attend the party, however. So we'd have 3 options here. We can integrate ourselves with the crowd. Do they know where Monsieur Son has been sent? Well, they can hear all about it, if only they let you in. Use an appalling secret, we can display our outlandish fashions. You are self-evidently a fascinating personage. Oh, I needed Bazaar 8, I have Bazaar 7. That is mildly annoying, hang on. Can I Can I squeak this? I don't think I can. I'm probably wearing the most bizarre outfit I can. Oh, wait. Maybe? Yes, if I just equip my bejeweled cane. Excuse me, could you put a cover on that? It's blinding the butler. There we go, Bizarre 8. Let's get in here. The crowd of listless bohemians parts before you like the Red Sea before Moses. You are, after all, sporting the most outlandish clothes here. You are let in the door, without question. This soiree is a human exhibition. Bohemians, poets, and fashion flies have been put on display. They sit or stand on plinths scattered around the rooms of a Vale Garden estate, silent under the gaze of the party guests. Some are here for the fashion, staring intently at fabric patterns or the cut of a jacket. Some purport to examine the expressions of those on display, discerning the profundity of their suffering. Some are here for the simple admiration of the human body. One guest, however, is a devil. When he gazes at the figures on display, he is looking at something else entirely. Well, let's approach the infernal critic and show him the coin. He believes a soul is best judged in its original context. The infernal critic inhabits the shape of a large man, tall and fat. Were he a man at all, you'd say he was on the far side of 60 years old, with a wavy mop of carefully combed grey hair and a sculpted moustache. His affectation of choice is a pince-nez, perched precariously on the bridge of a narrow nose. The lens, not meant for human eyes, invert and distort the world as he gazes through them. When he tilts his head, just so, they magnify his glowing red eyes. You introduce yourself, briefly, and then you hold up one of the iron coins before him. He gives you a broad, kindly smile, like a paunchy grandfather looking down at a Christmas pudding. One of those, I see. And what story were you hoping to hear? Well, let's ask the question. Whatever happened to the Lyrical Soul? He takes a moment before responding. He's calculating something, trying to figure out what your interest in this is, perhaps. But he doesn't answer your question with another question. Instead, he launches into a story. The Lyrical Soul, one of a handful of surviving treasures from an ancient age, a different time. The world was bigger. The Neath was more permeable. Every cave, grotto, or hole in the ground in Europe has a legend that claims it is the passageway to hell. Some of those stories used to be true. He's feeding you more introduction than necessary, embellishing, stalling. If there's relevant information in this story, it's meant to be buried among the details. What was so valuable about the lyricist's soul? The value of a soul is almost inscrutable to anyone other than a devil. It is neither proper nor safe for a devil to visit the surface, unheard of in these times. But in the days of the Second City, the laws used to be softer, and maybe we were younger, more foolish then. He slathers avuncular cheer onto every word. The Second City fell some 3,000 years ago, but is that even such a long time in the lifespan of devils? Even today, there's something special to a soul that was only recently bathed in sunlight, and the lyricist worshipped the sun. His soul had a great deal to recommend it. How did the devils claim his soul? Most soulless are willing, of course. But one hears horror stories, souls stolen, coerced, or simply lost. He agreed to the abstraction, of course. How else would his soul have ended up in a jar? But he viewed it as more than what it was. As a covenant. Love, maybe. He affects solemnity, as he says it. Mortals sometimes misunderstand. It usually ends in tears. The lyricist certainly understood very little. He chose to come down to the Neath, chasing what he thought was his. He glances at a timepiece on his wrist. But that's quite enough story. I believe I owe you a truthful answer to one question. So we get to pick one of these questions. Ask Verity's question dutifully. Who has the lyrical soul now? Let's ask our own question, out of curiosity. Whatever happened to the lyricist after his abstraction? Or we can ask Verity's question selfishly. And where might this valuable soul be found? I am going to ask it dutifully. Let's play by the rules for now. I don't, he says. The second the coin is in his hand, he takes his leave without so much as another word to you, as if he was held in place by a thread that you just severed. A bohemian standing on a plinth stretches. The sparkling wine on a waiter's tray slowly goes flat. Verity is supposed to meet you at Caligula's coffee house. We didn't really learn much there, I'll be honest. Verity's at Caligula's. She's picked a discreet, out-of-the-way table. Coffee steams in a porcelain cup before her, mostly just to drive off the attention of the waitstaff. Her eyes glint with satisfaction when she spots you. Well, let's relate our encounter with the infernal critic. You had a brief conversation, and much remains unanswered. It is to be expected. He was obliged to tell you a story, until he wasn't. The next time, it might be worth asking a few more questions, drawing out the interview. She takes a sip of her coffee, briefly obscuring her face in a heat haze. The answers won't necessarily be true, of course, until you give them the coin, but there's something to glean, even from lies. You notice a few minute scratches and scuffs on her sharp nails, flecks of dust clinging to her black dress. Were they there when you saw her before? She shrugs. I was almost sure the critic had it. I'm sure you'll have better luck with the second one. Well, who is our next target? Verity slides a piece of paper over the table to you. The address on the paper is a large manor on Watchmaker's Hill, where you're supposed to meet with a certain toxological deviless. An old acquaintance of mine, Verity says. She smiles, but she puts a lot of venom on the word acquaintance. An eccentric and a recluse. This is a rare opportunity to catch her in the open and ask questions. She looks at the underside of her wrist, where the minuscule timepiece hangs by a chain. You'd better hurry. Why is everyone in a rush? I feel like there's a ticking time here, and I don't know what it is. But let's make our way to Watchmaker's Hill, and the address Verity gave you points to a pre-lapsarian manor on Watchmaker's Hill. At present, it serves as the meeting place for the Zeno Club, an institution that endeavours to keep the ancient English fighting art of archery alive. That is, a sport for the idle rich who are too eccentric for shroom hopping or developing a debilitating honey habit. You will need to gain an invitation somehow. So we can either speak of our own fighting prowess. Maybe you can't take a man's head clean off with a longbow from 200 paces, but you've known violence. And that is because we have duelled in the Black Ribbon Fighting Club. Or we can purchase an invitation for 100 moon pearls. Archery, in this age, is a pastime of idle aristocrats, but some members of the club have expensive habits to sustain. We could rely on a mutual connection. If I was friends with Sophia, but I am not. Or we can look like you belong. Zeno's club attracts a certain class of partisan sportsmen. Tailored suits with blood under the fingernails. You know what, let's just rely on our own fighting prowess. A vague acquaintance of yours is a member of the club. An aristocratic dilettante with a morbid love for combat. The price of securing an invitation is mostly simply a few stories of your duels. He is above all intensely curious about a knife-throwing technique of your own devising. The house was already old during the fall, as old as the Tudors, though every individual brick and beam must have been replaced in the intervening centuries. Built in an ancestral style, it has no hallways. Its heart is a series of rooms joined together by wide doorways. With all of them opened, it's a space as big as a warehouse or a factory. Let's find the devil. The servant has disappeared within the bowels of the house, leaving you to find your own way. The dining room sits at one end of the manor, though all that remains to declare it as such is an imposingly long oaken table. Otherwise, the space is overgrown with archery paraphernalia. Bows of every shape and material, tools for stringing and unstringing them, quivers and shafts and arrowheads. The Zeno Club's range is simply the length of the building. On the far end of the manor, over the dance floor, and the sitting room and other stately spaces, is a parlour. A fireplace squats at the edge of that parlour, framed by all the doors. A target has been hung over the mantelpiece. The edge of the table marks the right distance, 100 yards or so, and a small crowd has formed around a demonstration carried out by the toxological deviless you came to see. She's hanging upside down from the ceiling, clinging to a rope with her knees, holding a recurve bow. She draws the string close to her cheek for a long time, waiting on the swaying of the rope. When she looses the arrow, it glides down the length of the building, through several rooms. Her target hangs above the fireplace in a parlour on the far end of the manor. Whatever she is doing, it sounds remarkably impressive. Let's introduce ourselves and show her the coin. As soon as the arrow leaves her fingers, it is immediately obvious that it will hit the bullseye. The toxological deviless's eyes narrow a little. A twitch of judgment. Something imperceptible about her shot must have fallen short of perfection. "We have not met," she says. You raise the coin up to her eye level. She twists on the rope and gives you an upside-down smile. Her teeth are, like most devils, a little too perfect. "We can talk, but won't you join me for a round?" Sure, why not? What could possibly go wrong? Why would we refuse this? There's a bow and a quiver on the table. The bow is identical to her own. Recurve, seemingly very old. 4th city, perhaps? You pull on the string, testing the draw strength. Substantial, but nothing you can't handle. Let's loose the first arrow. You haven't practiced or ever shot in these conditions, but surely it can't be hard to beat someone dangling upside down from the ceiling. Well, let's go. The rope she's dangling from is tied to what would have been the anchor point for a chandelier, when this place was being used as a dining room. It is thus perfectly aligned with the central axis of the building and allows her to face the target head on. But as she clings to it, she can't move from her spot. You are forced to stand a few feet to her left, so that you have to hit the target at an angle. She has placed you at a disadvantage, though one you could never complain about, given that she's still competing while clinging upside down to a rope. Still, you hit the bullseye, just on the edge. Her arrow strikes dead center. You are tied as far as score is concerned. Let's take a second shot, knock a perfectly balanced arrow and ask, what happened to the Lyrical Soul? The Lyrical Soul? She speaks very softly, so as to not disturb her aim. I had it for a time. She lets go of the string, and another arrow nestles next to her first one on the bullseye. The original owner was afflicted with bravery, a desirable quality, but only if it is allowed to ferment properly. You land another arrow just inside the bullseye, getting harder to keep up with her. Let's continue the round. Halfway there. She was young for a devilet, freshly mottled, a nymph. Another arrow, another perfect hit. When the lyricist asked where she came from, she'd laugh and tell him she came down from the mountains. Their courtship happened only at nighttime festivals, when the sun was far below the horizon. Your own arrow barely lands on the inside of the bullseye. The deviless hanging from the ceiling doesn't acknowledge it. Even if she could walk the surface, it's not so easy to abstract a soul there. So when she returned to the Neath, she made sure that he'd come after her. Perhaps he believed he was rescuing her from the underworld. Here comes the last shot. One more and you're done. How many have come down to the Neath pursuing a goal and then drowned in pleasure? The lyricist was only a man in an unfamiliar city. Before he found his nymph, he found honey and the fighting circle and the reed games. His soul is quite particular. There's the unjustified belief that the unresolved love, the indulgence and the guilt. You strain to hear the quiet, whispering voice she uses while concentrating. There used to be more artistry to it. In these days, there's so many of you, we simply search the mass of humanity for suitable souls. Your arrow barely lands in the bullseye this time. She abstracted his soul moments after his first sip of cider. Having concluded the round, the deviless slides off the rope and twists her body back to an upright position. There, is that enough history for you? Her true speaking voice is raspy and forceful. Now that she is right side up, you can get the measure of the deviless's tall, lanky build. She cracks the bones in her neck. Let me give you the truth up front. No, I don't have the Lyrical Soul. There, that should let you ask me a more interesting question with that coin of yours. So we can insist and ask if she has the Lyrical Soul. You might be lying, you need to know for sure. Or we can ask about the lyricist's fate. Did he regret it in the end? Or we can ask why Verity wants the soul. What's her interest in it? I'm assuming she's the nymph. Let's ask that question. I'm curious now. Oh, is that who sent you? Good to know. What's the saying? In the matters of the bazaar, look always to love. It's not the bazaar, it's the whole damn city. Verity can justify it however she likes. The truth is that she that was in love at one point, and she wants to cling on to the remains of that. The deviless tilts her head, shaking another thought loose. It is more than a little unseemly, but she marches to the beat of her own drum, in a manner of speaking, I mean. She takes the coin from your hand and leaves, wordlessly. Verity's instructions were to meet her at her home this time. It's near Moloch Street. But before we go to the Devil's Den, I think I am going to end this episode here. So thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. And as always, I'll see you next time.